The theme of the exhibition is the competitive edge. In mining, Australia must compete with countries around the world for markets, and this three-day expo in Singleton is the place to get state-of-the-art equipment.
Well, the Mine and Quarry exhibition that we have here today is literally the supermarket of mining supplies and services.
This $750,000 drilling rig can dig 50-metre blast holes to lay explosives. This monorail can carry workers and equipment hundreds of metres below the surface. With 200 exhibitors, it's a multi-million-dollar show. And with statistics showing the average coal miner earns $1,300 per week, the money is there to be spent. The first 2 days are only open to industry workers. The final day, Friday, is open to the public. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
If BHP's proposal goes ahead, these sand dunes it currently mines will make way for 1,500 residential blocks and an estimated 4,500 people.
We believe it'll be more like 10,000 because with 1,500 building blocks, we're not going to get 3 people per building block. The population of 10,000 are going to create enormous problems.
Last night, 200 people voiced their opposition to the plan, calling on Lake Macquarie Council to reject the rezoning application and buy the land itself. The meeting was told the Hunter Coastal Urban Settlement Strategy, released earlier this year as a guide to councils, described the area from Red Head to Catherine Hill Bay as buffeted from urban development by open space and scenic protection. It said land already earmarked residential was more than enough to meet current trends. Opponents say Belmont Sands would adversely affect Lake Macquarie and nearby wetlands and that infrastructure won't cope.
Anyone who lives in Belmont knows that the traffic is getting worse.
A spokesperson for BHP was not available for comment.
Within a matter of hours of landing in Australia, the Hunter Eagles' new head coach Gomer Hodge and pitcher Neil Webber were familiarising themselves with the team's headquarters in Newcastle. Both are from the Eagles' American Baseball League sister team, the Montreal Expos. Hodge joined the Canadian club in 1989 as a hitting instructor. A baseball coach for 22 years, Hodge doesn't believe in taking things casually once a game begins.
I've always, when I managed and everything, I like to try to get one run ahead, and the thing is, when you're one run ahead, it takes 2 to beat you. So I like to try to jump on top first.
21-year-old Neil Webber is a left-handed pitcher who, at full flight, unleashes a ball at 155 kilometres an hour. He joined the Expos minor league team mid-last year after graduating from college baseball.
It's a big step from college to the minor leagues, and the first year was a great learning experience for me. I grew up as an individual and matured, and I hope to do so here as well.
Meantime, Marathon Stadium is gaining a baseball field. Night staff are busy transforming the field into a baseball pitch, ready for the Eagles' season opener against the Sydney Blues on October 21st. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. If you're wanting to compete in an historic car rally, this is what you need: a vehicle of pre-1974 vintage. Through the efforts of these car buffs, those interested have a race to enter. 3 decades ago, the Matara Rally was one of the biggest historic car races in the state, till it was abandoned in the early 70s.
Some of the cars were getting a bit quick, and we're using, say, council roads, shire roads, and some of the farmers were objecting to the fact that perhaps up to 200 cars would go past their bedroom window in the early hours of the morning.
The revamped Matara Rally this weekend has attracted 22 entries from as far afield as Sydney and Orange. Some of them spent today fine-tuning their vehicles. Covering 360 kilometres, the race will start from Nobbies on Saturday, winding its way through the Hunter Valley to Riverwood Downs near Gloucester. On Sunday, the fleet will hit the track again, finishing in Raymond Terrace. While much of the race is on established roads, the drivers will also be required to go off the beaten track.
Then we'll have certain sections on private property where the driver's skill will be brought into play. In other words, he'll have to perform certain driving feats when we'll watch them and give points for the skill involved.
It's hoped the race will become an annual event coinciding with Newcastle's Matara Festival. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Australia's biggest export industry is on the verge of grinding to a halt if the issue isn't settled. The United Mine Workers Union says it accepts the tribunal being incorporated in the mainstream industrial relations system, but not at a disadvantage to its members. The union says the proposed arbitration system would be expensive and impractical. The strike threat has been postponed for at least a couple of days, with union boss John Maitland and Minister Laurie Brereton meeting in Canberra today and agreeing to have further talks about the future of the tribunal. But the uncertainty continues, just a week before crucial Japanese coal talks. The New South Wales Coal Association has described the union's actions as irresponsible and ill-timed.
And there are some issues that you've got to take on regardless of the timing. I mean, there's never a good time for a stoppage, whether it's a stoppage at a mine or a national stoppage. However, there are some issues that you just can't afford to sidestep, and this is one of them.
The union says if a resolution isn't reached quickly, it'll withdraw support for the ALP in key marginal seats such as Maitland at the next state election.
There's a very strong likelihood that that could happen unless we get some satisfactory outcome to this question of the tribunal's future.
I'm not greatly concerned at present. There's a lot of time and a lot of water is going to pass under the bridge between now and March 25 next year.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
This intersection at the corner of Kangoo Road and the Pacific Highway at Summersby has about 400 truck movements a day. Nearby is a major distribution centre for coals. Representatives from trucking companies, the Transport Workers Union, Gosford Council and Police today called for a safer intersection.
This is potentially one of the most dangerous black spots in all the Central Coast, and we see it as being a potential death trap.
It's estimated it takes 11 seconds for a truck to cross the intersection and only 3 seconds for an oncoming car travelling at the 80 km/h speed limit to be on top of it. Applications have been made to the RTA for a roundabout. What's needed now is the OK for a start.
We'd like them to start tomorrow. Where we currently are is the fact that it is an RTA controlled road and that we need their funding to proceed with it.
The RTA says there have only been 2 accidents at the intersection in the last 5 years. A spokesperson said the authority is considering the road safety needs, including a roundabout and reduced speed limits. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
$260 players, 75 of those professionals, took to the greens at Merriweather Golf Course for the inaugural Newcastle Pro-Am, and the honour list was impressive. Among the pros, current New South Wales Open champion Darren Shivers, Grant Kenny, who led last year's Australian Masters until the last round, and giving away a few years to some of the younger competitors, Newcastle's Cole Johnston, a 2-time winner of the Australian PGA Championship in 1963-64. The tournament is the first of 3 in the Hunter over the next 4 days. Tomorrow, the contingent moves to Maitland and to Branxton over the weekend for one of the richest pro-ams outside of Sydney. The aim of the series is to boost golf in the area, at the same time promoting the profile of local courses to people living outside the region.
Over the next couple of years, we hope to have about another 2 or 3 clubs come in and be involved with us, and hopefully we can organise a sponsor to have a circuit prize over those 5 days.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The Mingara Recreation Club at Tumbiumbi has been spearheading the drive over the past 2 months. Members have been running raffles and concerts, among other schemes, to raise the thousands of dollars necessary to buy the sugarcane hay from the Murwillumbah area.
It's been a very successful drive. What we thought was going to be only a couple of trucks has now blossomed into 17.
Several organisations have lent a hand to the appeal. State Rail transported the hay south to Gosford. Sydney Electricity is providing several trucks and drivers, and the Bushfire Brigade is helping offload the bales. So the grassy top of the sugarcane, which was once routinely burnt off to make harvesting the stalk easier, is now becoming a valuable resource, helping in the effort to keep stock alive until the rain comes again.
We've purchased 4,500 bales of hay at Murwillumbah up in the north coast, and this is the 6 rail trucks now that we're unloading onto 17 vehicles, which will be forming a convoy.
They'll be leaving from the club at Tumbiumbi at 3 o'clock in the morning, hoping to distribute the fodder throughout the Brewarrina district by tomorrow night. It's been a regular feature for the last 6 or 7 years at the Wyong Memorial Hall. All manner of gems are on show, with precious stones joined by fossils of dinosaurs and fish, etc. But the large limb bones and skulls are cast models of the real thing held in overseas museums. But there are also advice and information available and displays of the type of equipment needed to make a professional job of gem cutting. Regular exhibitor Leo Beattie is showing his excellent agate from the Normanton area in northwest Queensland. But the highlight of the show is this jewel of a Taj Mahal, constructed by local Col Arnott from broken up gems and faceted stones as well. Dealers from Sydney and Newcastle are on hand, willing to do business, and the show is open on both days of the weekend from 9 o'clock in the morning.
About 250 people heard senior industry representatives outline their forecasts for the industry, with Japan certain to be a major customer for years to come, and with China and India emerging as giant consumers, the potential for markets is bright.
If world energy projections are right, over the next few years, the demand in Southeast Asia, particularly for coal-fired power stations, is going to be enormous. I think World Energy Council figures estimate the equivalent of something like 73 new power stations.
But on top of unrest among miners, afraid coal companies are buckling under pressure from Japanese cartels to drop prices, investment in the industry is also close to rock bottom. With returns just 2.6%, investors have been reluctant to buy into the industry even as the recession recedes. There are also major battles looming with the green movement if the industry is to press for a guarantee of further supplies. It claims 50% of New South Wales coal reserves are locked beneath national parks, another 30% untouchable because of other land uses.
As technology improves, the methodology by which we can mine coal better, cleaner, with less dislocation to areas may mean that we can start looking at the issue again.
Depleted by the continuing dry weather, Keep It Dam is holding just 7% of its 423 gigalitre capacity, and it's discharging 487 megalitres a day. The enlargement plan would see the dam's capacity increased by a third by raising the spillway wall.
There's no better time to start pushing for water supplies and increased storage than in a drought, to look at taking up that indication in 1992 that we should lift the storage by 3 metres or 5 metres, preferably 5.
The additional capacity would have a significant impact on the stability of the Namoy Valley, and Mr Murray is pushing for a feasibility study to be undertaken straight away.
I don't envisage any increase in licences. It will give a more stable flow to the river system, and as a result of that, I think an overall better production.
Mr Murray was not willing to speculate on the cost or when the enlargement might get underway if approved, but said it should be studied immediately.
Owen Craigie, his father Ray and the Canberra Raiders last weekend signed a one-year contract in spite of the 16-year-old being on a 3-year scholarship with the Knights. Newcastle believed the scholarship was legally binding and threatened the Raiders with a legal battle, which now appears unlikely after the Knights and Craigie Senior and Junior agreed to an upgraded 4-year playing contract.
Owen's showing all the right signs that warrant extending his contract. He's certainly a player of the future, and we want to hold him at the Newcastle Knights for quite some time to come.
Earlier in the week, Raiders Chief Executive Kevin Neal said the club would not pursue the matter legally and was unaware of the existing arrangement between Craigie and the Knights. Owen, who comes from Tinga near Inverell, today spoke publicly for the first time, content to remain a Knight after being tempted by the Premiers.
You know, it was a good option at the time, but you know, when I got back to Newcastle, I thought and realised what I've achieved with the club and what they've done for me. It's been good, so I decided to stay here.
Meantime, the appointment of Newcastle's reserve grade coach has been put back after last night's board meeting.
There was a very lengthy board meeting last night, and due to a very full agenda, the board has resolved to defer the decision of the reserve grade coach to a special meeting of the board on Monday week.
Around 60 professionals teed off in today's Maitland Pro-Am, the course providing a tough test with only 2 subpar rounds returned by 5 o'clock. The tour heads to Branxton tomorrow for the richest Pro-Am outside the metropolitan area, the $20,000 Oakbridge Tournament. $14,000 is on offer for the likes of Jeff Wagner, Lucas Parsons and Darren Chivers, while Denise Hutton and Louise Mullard will contest the women's event worth $6,000. Also this weekend, round 1 of the Super Sedan Top Gun Championship will be held at Newcastle Motordrome tomorrow night. The event has attracted the state's best drivers, with a series to be held over 10 rounds.
Under blue skies, more than 150 people turned out for the Newcastle Wilderness Society's major fundraiser, the annual Walk for Wilderness. Many began their 5, 10 or 15 kilometre sponsored walks early to avoid the heat. While some upped the pace, others had theirs slowed by natural causes. Surfers also took part, each half hour spent in the water raising funds. Mark Richards helped the cause, donating a surfboard for auction. All money raised goes towards funding the Society's ongoing campaign of wilderness protection.
After Neil Dorset's unofficial course record of a 7 under 63 and 15 subpar rounds yesterday, perfect conditions at Branxton once again allowed for some low scores. Dorset had a 2-shot lead overnight, but the likes of John Clifford, Darren Chivers, Martin Peterson and Jeff Wagner were all just a few shots off the pace. And it was Clifford and Chivers who moved through the field to share the lead at 6 under par with just 3 holes remaining. Peterson a further shot behind. In the women's event, overnight leader Kathy Stoltz appeared a likely victor with just a few holes remaining, despite an indifferent round after her 68 yesterday. And at Cessnock today, 6 regional teams from throughout the state contested the final round of the Jack Crawford Shield. The Southeast eventually emerged victorious after a tight struggle with defending title holders and host team Northumberland.
Water is becoming more and more precious. Grahamstown Dam has dropped to just 62% of capacity. Overall, the Hunter Water Corporation's dams are on 65%. For the last 12 months, the corporation has been supplementing its supply from another source. 25% of water needs are being pumped from natural underground reserves at Tomago. The next backup is supplies under sand dunes on Stockton Beach from Fern Bay to Berrubi Point.
There's underground water there that we've been aware of for a long time, and we consider that as a drought reserve in the event of a major emergency.
If the drought lasts through this next summer, the Water Corporation will look at plans to mine Stockton Beach's liquid gold. It's estimated there could be 40,000 million litres under the dunes, a supply which, if used sparingly, could last for 2 years. Meanwhile, a media campaign will be launched on Sunday asking people to cut back on water use. If conditions worsen, restrictions could come in within weeks. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Newcastle Tennis Academy today staged its annual National Mutual Pro-Am at Cardiff, with host Rick McCosker joined by another former Blues captain and Test player, Jeff Lawson. While both are proficient tennis players, Rick did need some help in his match against Newcastle's international Rachel McQuillan. His footwork not quite as graceful as when he was at the crease for New South Wales and Australia. McQuillan has just come back from a total break and has begun preparing for the Australian Open and will play in some minor tournaments in South Australia before contesting either the Tasmanian or New South Wales Open. For Lawson, the competition wasn't quite as tough, but the former paceman seemed confused at times, believing he was back at his rightful home court, the SCG. Lawson has now retired from all levels of cricket, but has fond memories of Newcastle's #1 Oval, the venue for England's match against New South Wales on the coming Ashes tour.
It's a great ground to play on. New South Wales have done very well here over the years. I think last time we played the Poms, we beat them in about 2.5 days. So our guys will remember that, and they'll remember it, and they'll want to get some revenge. But it should be just a classic game of cricket.
The Waratah Leagues Club was closing for the night at around 10:30 when a staff member was confronted by two armed men at the front door. One was carrying a shortened firearm, the other a handgun. Inside the club were 6 patrons and a barman. They were forced to lie on the floor while the club was searched. Once the men had found the cash registers and change machines, they bundled the 8 people into this cool room and locked the door. The men also took 2 of the victims' wallets and raided a safe. They then fled the club. A short time later, the 8 were able to force their way out of the cool room and raise the alarm. The man carrying the sawn-off shotgun is said to be tall and of thin build. He was wearing blue overalls and was disguised in a balaclava. The other man is of medium height, slightly bigger in build, and was wearing a black sloppy joe with white stripes down the sleeves and black track pants which had paint splashed on them. He too was disguised in a balaclava. The men escaped with a medium amount of money. It's the second time the club has been targeted in the last week. Thieves tried unsuccessfully to break into the club in several locations last weekend. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Rucker today informed coach Tom Wisman that he wanted another 24 hours to consider his future. Rucker will talk with the Falcons owners tomorrow, a decision likely to follow that meeting. The Star Import has been talking to 3 clubs, Brisbane, Townsville and Newcastle, but it's understood the Bullets are now looking at 2 other imports in preference to Rucker. Townsville officials confirmed they had been in contact with Rucker today and were also awaiting his decision. Meantime, there was good news for Newcastle trainer Paul Perry and Epsom winner Navy SEAL today. Scanning revealed its injuries weren't as bad as first thought after breaking down in Saturday's Caulfield Cup. Navy SEAL has torn muscles in its offside front leg and will be spelled for 3 months. And this Saturday's Greyhound meeting at Beaumont Park has been reduced to a 4-race program after a boycott by the local Owners and Trainers Association over a reduction in prize money. 12 races were scheduled and the Newcastle Jockey Club has agreed to restore prize money for its full TAB meeting next Wednesday.